for Wyoming Hookin Huntin Outdoors with your host, Drew Kirby.
Hey, this is Luke Combs.
I am Morgan Wallen.
I'm Riley Green.
I'm Travis Denning.
Hey, I'm Aaron Lewis.
Hey, it's Luke Bryan.
I'm Tim McGraw.
What's up? This is Ian Munsick.
Wyoming Hookin Huntin Outdoors.
It's Wyoming Hookin Huntin Outdoors. We do appreciate you tuning in every week. And if you ever have questions for Game and Fish or for any of our guests, you can always hit us up in the radio station's app, hit that message button, and send it right in. And every week we bring Janet Millig from Game and Fish in with us to kind of guide the ship on that end. And Janet, I know it's been a heck of a run. And as a matter of fact, we're pushing 3 years on this show.
The fact that you make me come up with a new topic every week for the last 3 years, Drew, you're kind of a slave driver.
Well, your bosses reach out to me and they're like, you got to give Janet something to do. She's just walking around here bothering people.
Exactly. See, so you get it. At least everybody knows, and we're all on the same team.
Yeah. You know, and we always have fun and we learn things. And I've had a couple of people comment our show last week. We had Matt Hahn on, and Matt kind of reflected back on some of the years that he's been there. And that's kind of the fun part about Game and Fish is when someone starts working for Game and Fish, the careers are made that are really a long career because people want to come to Wyoming to work outdoors and to be in the outdoors and get to live and love it because you never know where someone's going to end up coming from. We always talk about the fact that research is done 365. It never stops to help the procedure go along, and there are all kinds of opportunities to work, whether it's an information officer like yourself or just someone that works inside the office. But then there are those boots on the ground men and women that are hitting the road in their green trucks and getting jobs done all over the state, whether it's a biologist or a warden.
That's right. And it's absolutely fantastic when you get into Game and Fish, there's just such a breadth of positions that are going to be available across the state in Game and Fish. And we encourage people to start looking into it.
And part of the reason that we're doing the show today is because there's a big date coming up, August 15th. And that date is the closing of the applications for the warden jobs. Now, there are some qualifications that are needed to be a game warden, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. But we also have a couple of technicians with us today that, well, they're kind of making their way through the Game and Fish family, starting out at the bottom like everyone else and making their way up the chain.
That's right, Drew. I have a couple kids here today, Sean and Simon, who both have very different stories and can talk a little bit about how they ended up here in the Casper Regional Office of the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, and maybe give a little hint to those younger folks who might still be in high school and want to go through, make some career choices through college, or if you're just kind of finishing up in college, how to make the efforts to get into Game and Fish and how they landed here. And it's kind of some neat stories.
Well, let's start with you, Simon. You've been with Game and Fish a little bit longer than Sean, but tell us where you're from and how you got to want to be in the wildlife industry.
Yeah, so I'm from Casper, Wyoming, and it's great being able to work here. In high school, I kind of took a financial literacy course, and there was a portion of that course where we went in and kind of took a quiz to see which kind of pathways we should take. And one of those pathways was the game warden pathway. And so ended up getting with my teacher, and we reached out to the Game and Fish, and I was able to do it right along with one of our wardens who's still here in Casper, Jake Ketley. Through that kind of showed me like the path I wanted to take. And yeah, I did want to be a game warden. And so ended up going through college, getting my rangeland degree. Then once I graduated, did a summer where I was guiding for rock climbing. The summer was petering out, kind of needed to look for jobs, and ended up looking on the job board and found the access technician was still open, and ended up applying, getting it. And yeah, I've been here since. And kind of that rangeland degree has really pushed to me wanting to be in the outdoors even more. And being able to get this position is kind of solidified where I want to be in my career and starting to get towards becoming a game warden.
So it really, when you made that decision in high school, did you automatically start looking into degrees that you knew you could get and that would help you in the long run? Because that's one of the qualifications is you have to have a bachelor's degree, and it needs to be in some sort of outdoor lifestyle of a degree.
Yeah, so I looked into it through that right along with Jake. He kind of told me like the different degrees you need, like wildlife management, biology, any 4-year degree really in science. And so initially I did go to Casper College for my biology degree. Ended up not really liking that and kind of switched over into fire science kind of things. So got my associates in fire science. And through that, it kind of, I was talking to my advisor and he told me that rangeland is kind of the next step for firefighting, because I've kind of been back and forth between game warden and firefighting through my college career. But now that I got this job with the Game and Fish, it kind of solidified that again.
Well, Sean, let's jump over to you. Give us a little bit of your background and what made you decide the Game and Fish department.
Yeah, so I've been interested in working with wildlife since I was a young boy, and I think I lived near a nature preserve when I was younger, so I got the experience of working with wildlife in my backyard, and that definitely jump-started my career into the wildlife pathway. And when I moved to Wyoming for college, I went to the university over in Laramie, and I knew right away that I was going to major in wildlife biology. So I actually did concurrent majors in wildlife and fisheries management, as well as environment and natural resources. I was looking for anything that could boost my resume, give me that jump start into the career, make me stand out a little bit. So my advisor suggested pairing wildlife biology with that natural resource major. And then my freshman year, I was out fishing in the Snowies, and I ran into one of the head honchos in Laramie, Matt Withroder, and I told him I was interested in working a similar career as he was. And he mentioned that getting as much experience and diverse experience as possible while I'm in college. And so he said, even if you have to work unpaid volunteer positions, if it's something that's wildlife related, that will make you stand out. And that's a really good look on your resume. And so as soon as I had met him, I started like branching out. I got like a different internship every year, trying to widen my experiences. And so I worked, I did bluebird surveys in Indiana. That was my first volunteer position. That got me enough experience to start getting paid internships. And then I was lucky enough to get a internship with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife down in Georgia. I worked with feral hogs and sea turtles. And then from there, I jumped over to working in Alaska with a native corporation. And I got experience with different ungulates and fish. I think it was moose, caribou, and salmon. And my experiences there were similar enough to the requirements needed for Wyoming Game and Fish that I finally felt ready enough to apply once I graduated. And I was lucky enough to land the wildlife technician position here. And so the previous 3 wildlife internships that I've had really helped me stand out against the other candidates. I had enough experience that I didn't have to go through a whole lot of new training. I'd already done a lot of the work with population surveys and habitat assessments. So it was a big help. Even just getting something that was unpaid or a temporary summer internship really makes a difference.
So it really is something that, you have to have your mind in the right place to want to work in the outdoor industry. If you're going to work with game and fish, this isn't something that you're flipping burgers one day and then you're like, well, I guess I'll just go work for game and fish. I mean, there's a lot of time and effort that is put into these jobs. And just what you were saying is, what state are you originally from?
I'm from Indiana originally.
Indiana, and then you automatically knew you wanted to come to Wyoming to go to the University of Wyoming. Was it because you wanted to eventually work in Wyoming, or did they just have the programs that you wanted for your degrees?
I think it was a little bit of both. I used to have family over in Green River, and my uncle got me a tour at the university, and he explained to me that University of Wyoming has one of the best programs in the country for wildlife and fisheries biology management. And I mean, where I'm from, it's just like cornfields and soybeans, so it's not super exciting. And so when I came out here, I fell in love with the mountains and the diverse amount of wildlife pretty much immediately. So I knew that as soon as I got accepted, I was like, I could see myself staying here for a while.
I like the fact that you have dabbled in different areas to work with those different types because Georgia to Alaska, those are two different places. And then even Alaska to Wyoming, it is that much of a difference. So you have learned a little bit of everything so that maybe you want to, branch off and go in a different direction. You still have that experience under your belt.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I have definitely learned from the amount of times I've had to apply for different jobs. I've experienced my fair share of rejections from employers that I wanted to work with. And I remember what Matt Withroder told me, just, don't give up, don't get discouraged. You're going to get declined a few times. And so I just kept that in the back of my mind. It was like, if I got rejected, I'd just apply for like 10 to 20 jobs a summer, hopefully to get one that was career related, and keep going until I got a job that sounded interesting, and just keep taking steps forward, getting the new experiences, getting diverse, or working with different animals and different parts of the country, just getting as much knowledge as I can.
Simon, let's jump back to you real quick. How was the process, you being from Casper, how was the process that you went through the system to get into Game and Fish? I know Sean said that he kind of bounced around and got some ideas, but obviously being from Wyoming, you knew exactly where you wanted to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when I saw that the access technician job opened and it was in Casper, I just thought that was about perfect for me, just because I came back to Casper after being down in Laramie. Just because my girlfriend got a job here and I knew we wanted to be here for at least a few years. And so it was just a perfect way for me to kind of slip into that position. And yeah, I really didn't get as much wildlife hands-on experience as Sean did through my college career, but I have different levels of experience with, a few years ago, I worked on a wheat farm up in Oregon. That's good experience for the Game and Fish, learning how to talk to different landowners within our region. That kind of gives you that experience. Big part of the Game and Fish that I found is, especially in the wildlife division and in a lot of divisions, we're dealing with people a lot. And so having those people skills and having that experience working with different diverse groups of people really helps with these positions.
So, Simon, you did say that game warden is in your future, and the process of becoming a game warden, and Janet, we want to bring you back in because we want to make sure that people know that August 15th is the cutoff for applying, and you have kind of a small window to get your applications in for the game warden position.
That's right. It is not a position that is offered as often as maybe some of our other positions. If there's a vacancy, let's say in a waterfowl biologist that gets posted, that will be posted when it is open and for a couple months until there's enough applications to do an interview. But with the game warden recruitment process, it is open one time a year. And so this is that one time of year. So we want to make sure that students that may not have their bachelor's degree yet, but are going to be finishing their degree maybe this December, still get your application in. It is a perfect time to kind of go through all of this. It is a long process. There is the written application that goes in, and the transcript review to make sure that you meet those minimum qualifications. Kind of what Simon talked a little bit about, all of the different check marks, as well as Sean on the number of classes that you take, the degree that you earn. And then we do a Google interview. So that Google interview, which is just an online interview, kind of gives everybody an initial, like, where's your goal? Where are you coming from? Where do you want to go in life? Those sorts of things. And really it moves people on to the next step. And so it is quite the recruitment process to get people there. And that's why our game wardens are typically so fantastic.
August 15th is the closing of the application for the game warden, but there are open positions all the time. And it's very simple to just go to wgfd.wyo.gov. You go to the bottom of the page, hit the careers, and it'll take you right to the government jobs page focused on wildlife openings. So get over there if you're interested. If you're a kid that's a senior, we talked through a little bit of what you have to go through to get to the point to work with game and fish. So get involved and really start building your career today before you even get into college or out of high school. So Simon and Sean, we appreciate you guys coming on, and we do appreciate that the hard work and determination that you guys both have. It's nice to talk to you, and we look forward to talking to you guys in the future.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Drew.
It's Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors.
And we're back, and Wyoming Game and Fish Department sticking around. We bring in Matt Hahn, Janet, and we get questions. And I mentioned at the top of the show that we love getting those because then we can answer what people want to know and what they want to learn about. And that's been kind of our motto since the beginning.
Absolutely. Super happy to answer any questions that come into you. But as a reminder, always feel free to call us at the office. Any of the people that we have on the show chatting about stuff are available mostly 24/7. You guys carry your phones all the time, it seems like these days. Although if you call us through the office, sometimes it does take us a while to get back to folks. But yeah, it is information central, and we just really want people to know that and give us a call anytime.
We got an email this week from Jerry, and Jerry says, I have family coming into town, and they want to fish while they're here. I expect that they're from out of state, the way that he kind of presented it, but he said, we don't fish that often and want to take them. There are 2 adults, 4 kids, ages 7 to 17. Can you guys give us ideas of good places to fish that's safe, easy, and away from town?
Ooh.
Yeah. There's certainly a lot of opportunity around here for that. If they're looking for something that's easy and kind of safe and not in town, I would say either go up to Pathfinder. If you go up into the Bishop Point area, obviously there's good roads to get in there. Walleye fishing's white hot this time of year, so they could throw jigs tipped with night crawlers from shore and probably catch some walleye and maybe have a crack at a trout as well. Same with Alcova. Any of the areas at Alcova, you can usually catch fish from shore, worms, night crawler, things like that aren't too tough to fish. You should be able to catch something. The river's pretty high right now, so if you were worried about safety of little kids, I probably wouldn't go fish the river. A lot of the smaller streams around are pretty warm right now because of the crazy hot temperatures we've been having, so fishing would be pretty slow there. So basically, if they want to take a road trip, go up to the higher country, Bighorns, or up in some of those streams in the Laramie Range like Laprelle, Labonte, Horseshoe, they could catch brook trout up there, not too difficult. But if they're looking for something easy and fun for the kids, Pathfinder Alcova is always a good time. Kids can throw rocks and you can fish and swim and wade and do whatever you want.
So the family is 2 adults and 4 kids, age 7 to 17. So obviously you got to be legal in here and have your fishing licenses. And if they're only going to be here for a couple of days, they don't have to buy the annual, but you can still buy a non-resident license, right?
Correct. We sell non-resident daily licenses. The kids, if they may not need them, just check the regulations. The non-resident youth can fish without a license as long as they're fishing with a licensed adult. And their limit for non-residents applies to the licensed adult that they're with. Regardless, if you think they want to fish and keep their own fish, a non-resident daily license is really inexpensive for youth. It's just a few bucks. They don't need a conservation stamp or anything like that with it.
Very good. Well, of course, you go to wgfd.wyow.gov. You can get your license online before you even get to state, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And, just as a reminder, Jessica's Pond, which is out by Bessemer Bend, kind of along the river next to the Dansby's Fish Hatchery, is also an opportunity for folks if you just want to do kind of an afternoon sort of a trip. There are lots of fish that get stocked into that by the fish hatchery right next door. And so it is a great, quick opportunity. So if you just want to check your skills or gauge the interest of those fishing, that might be a place too before you drive too far. And it is far enough out of town that it isn't too busy. There's a nice little picnic area and a restroom out there. So keep in mind that that's even an option.
Absolutely. Family friendly is what Wyoming fishing and hunting is all about. So you need more info, you can hit us up in our radio station's app.
It's Wyoming Hookin Huntin Outdoors.
It's Drew along with Brian Woodward at Rocky Mountain Discount Sports. And, well, Brian, you went out and you slayed them this week, I hear.
Oh, Pathfinder's been good for the last few weeks for us. Just, just fish. They're not any great quality fish, but, if you're, trying to, take a kid out or teach somebody how to, I don't know, pull planer boards or whatever. It's a good opportunity because there's a bunch of 12 to 15-inch fish in there for sure.
So when you're coming into the store, we really talked about planer boards when we were over at Boyson for the first time, and and guys that may not know, when you're using those, you use them like crankbaits or whatever you're pulling along, or you're just kind of slowly rolling with that.
Yeah, I mean, we honestly we've been pulling crankbaits up at Pathfinder for the last couple weeks, and we've been pulling them pretty fast. Normally, kind of rule of thumb with most crankbaits is we pull them at 2 to 2.2 miles an hour, and we've been anywhere from 2.5 to 2.8. So we're ripping those things through the water. So
it is kind of interesting how different you run at different times of the year. Just to, if slow isn't working, you switch to a little faster.
Yeah, and you hear it a lot of times with like fly fishermen where you have to match the hatch. Whatever bugs they're using is what's out there is that what they're using, and same thing, same principle works with pulling crankbaits. Whether you're trying to imitate a shad or if you're trying to imitate a carp or a trout, the body style of the crankbait that you're using is fairly important. And then watching your graph, seeing where those fish are at, whether they're hugging the bottom or whether they're suspended, and then that'll determine how far back you're going to run those cranks to cover whatever depth of water column that you're fishing.
When you're looking at your cranks and your selection, how many different colors are you choosing from? Because I know it's a little different, depending on the time of the year.
Of course, the first couple trips out, you just don't know, and so, if I've got Buddy in the boat, we're running 4 different colors to start, and then we're, running them for 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then swapping them out to a different color, different body style. Pathfinder is kind of one of those go ugly early lakes, and so we kind of pick the most obnoxious colored crankbaits out of the box, and then just start kind of going from there.
And it really is interesting that color plays such a role. Like, 'cause if you think about a jig and a worm, there's not much different color unless you have a bright pink, jig on there.
Jig and a worm's a jig and a worm, right?
Yeah, right. But sure enough, you could catch on a jig and a worm, but then you have a bright colored, crankbait. It may not work the same as.
Yeah, and and then water clarity plays a part of that. Whether you're on a cloudy day or bright sunny day, the water clarity at Pathfinder is pretty good, and we've been fishing fairly shallow. It's anywhere from 4 to 10 foot of water. So, using those planer boards to get the bait away from the boat is pretty important, so that you're not just fishing in your prop wash in 6 foot of water. And so there's just a lot of different things to consider, but I was out the other day with a friend, and I said, well, if you're trolling and you're not and it doesn't feel like you're working hard, then you're probably not doing it right. I mean,
right.
You could obviously just kind of like ice fishing, right? You could drill one hole and sit in that one hole and hope that you catch a fish all day, and you could do the same thing trolling. Is you could cast a lure out there, and okay, maybe it's out there 50 feet, and you could troll it around all day and not catch anything, or you can constantly be trying to solve the problem, maybe less line, maybe a little more line, maybe different colors, maybe different body styles, and that, takes a little bit of work. You're standing up in the boat, reeling in boards and reeling in line and switching out crankbaits. And, heck, half the time I've got 10 different Plano boxes on the back deck, and I'm picking different colors. I'm like, yep, this guy's on deck. He's going out next. And,
yeah.
And if I do catch one, then I usually leave that rod alone, and because I know that it's a proven winner, right?
Does it turn into lazy man fishing at that point then? Say you got 4 rods out.
Well, no,
with
then
the
you're
same
catching
one.
fish and you're busy.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, when you're pulling cranks and stuff, it's really nice if you have like line counting reels where that you're putting out a bait 60 feet back. If you're just using a spinning reel, now you're just kind of guessing, right? Maybe you cast it and you're like, that looks like about 60 feet. But you can really dial things in precision-wise if you're using a line counter. And then on a lot of boats, they've got a kicker motor, like a 9.9 kicker, let's say, probably the most common. There's a couple different tools that you can accessorize that kicker with. Like one of the things that I like using is a troll master. And a troll master kind of hooks up a little servo to your kicker motor. Instead of having to rely on the cable that drives that throttle,
right?
It's hard to make that a precision like lock in. A lot of times as it vibrates and rotates, it goes off, and now you were trolling at 2.0, but now you look down, you're at 1.5.
Right.
With the Troll Master, you can actually turn this little dial, and it's like a micro adjustment. And you can, if you want to go 2.3 and always be at 2.3, it's pretty easy to do.
What's a guy got to do to get a startup package? Is it going to be a bank breaker, or is it just really depending on how high they want to go?
Like what we normally stock is kind of a good, better, and best, right? So, you can probably get a combo line counter with a rod and a reel, probably for, let's say, $60 to $100, somewhere in that ballpark. But you could also buy a Shimano Takato reel for $229. Right. So, over time, I've kind of, upgraded because I just felt like, I've maybe gone through reels where, I did it enough where the lower price reels, kind of like with spinning reels, kind of a 1 ball bearing, or maybe they're plastic ball bearings instead of stainless steel ball bearings, and they just kind of wear out. So, kind of with life in general, you kind of get what you pay for. And so if you're just starting and you're not sure if you're going to like it or how it really works, a lot of the basic, combos are going to work fine for a person. There is a trolling app that you can download to your phone called Precision Trolling. And it kind of helps take some of the guesswork out of pulling cranks as well. It gives you dive curves for all the different crankbaits that are out there. So if you're going to pull a Rapala Shad Wrap, it's based on running 2 miles an hour with 10-pound Trilene XT, or it'll also give you dive curves on the 10-pound Fire line, braided line, which also has just a slight difference in dive depth. But you can download that app, and that'll give you a lot of starting points. So if you're again using your electronics, you're starting to see a bunch of fish that are down at 10 foot. You can go to that trolling app, say, okay, well, I've got a bunch of Shad Wraps, and how am I going to get down to 10 foot? And you scroll over there and you say, I want to go down 10 feet, and it says, okay, put out 137 foot of line. So a good little tool for people to check out.
And one of the things that with those planer boards that you were showing us is you put your line out as far as you're going to put it, and then you got the planer board there, and then you let it out even more than that just to give yourself that lead.
Yeah, so the nice part with the planer boards is it allows you to cover a wider span of water, right? So if you're normally just fishing your rods out of the side of the boat, you might have, an 8-foot rod going out one side, an 8-foot rod going out the other side, plus the distance of your boat. You might only be covering 20 feet of water column. But if you're running a planer board, you can run that planer board out 150 feet if you want,
Right.
And if you want to run one rod in really shallow, you can set that planer or that crankbait so maybe it's only covering 3 foot, but your boat's in 10 foot. You can cover different spectrums of the water column just by doing that.
And really, it's kind of cool how it looks the way that you do it right, and it's going to be gapped, it's going to be spaced, and it's going to look pretty cool.
Yeah, and then if one of your crankbaits isn't tuned properly, where it's not quite running true and straight, it helps to keep those lines from being tangled up. That gives you a little more line separation there, and it allows you to fish a little bit away from the boat so that you're not trying to catch fish inside of your prop watch.
If someone is looking for planer boards, do you guys carry multiple levels, or you keep it pretty standard?
The planer boards anymore, price wise, is about the same. However, there are different manufacturers. So there's offshore tackle, there's Church's tackle, there's Omni boards. We try to carry a little bit of everything just to give some variety. Some of them are yellow, some of them are orange, some of them are kind of a bright green. Somebody might just have a preference. I like the offshore tackle ones. They work just fine. I've been using them for 20 years, and it's one of those things that you don't lose them. They don't really break. It's a piece of equipment that's going to last you a long, long time.
Not only does it keep your line separated, but it will give you an idea of the fact that there's a fish on there, a little easier than just guessing.
Yeah, there's all kinds of with planer boards. There's tattletale kits. We always kind of joke, you've got mail. It looks like a mailbox with a flag up there. But there's a tattletale kit that you can purchase that's kind of an accessory that, especially when you're catching smaller fish, that flag will actually pull back. And sometimes, if it's a small fish like Pathfinder tends to have, those planer boards, it's hard to tell whether or not you've got a fish on them. The boards are twice as heavy as the fish, so that doesn't actually pull the board back. It probably, when they initially hit, it'll pull the board back, but then it kind of just drags the fish along. But with that tattletale kit, it does allow that flag to kind of come back on a little bit different angle. It makes it a little bit easier for a person to recognize that they have a fish on.
Almost kind of like if you're ice fishing, a tip up will do.
Yeah, real similar.
Same thing. Well, we also know that there are different sizes of the planer boards. I know that you had a couple of different sizes out, but if you have any questions about this, come on in and see them here at the store. They can get you all hooked up right here at Rocky Mountain Discount Sports.
It's Wyoming Hookin Huntin Outdoors.
Drew and Brian back at Rocky Mountain Discount Sports. And Brian, we were just talking one style of fishing that a lot of guys are doing now, and it's a little bit easier for some folks to get it, but once you kind of get the method down, then it's really kind of an easy philosophy. But what if a guy is still just taking that rod and reel and casting down every time and trying to get some, or is that working right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know some the anglers that come in here, they're just diehard, jig and a plastic, and there's other guys that are still buying minnows. So really, however you like to fish, what I've seen in the last few weeks is that you just have to find the fish. They're not everywhere,
Right.
And so it seems to me, we've seen a lot of minnows up in the lake. So I don't know if those minnows are schooled up, which is making the walleyes kind of school up a little bit more. But, even on a troll bite, we'll pick up fish for 100 yards, and then we won't catch a fish for a quarter mile. And then all of a sudden we'll catch another pot of fish. And so if you're a shore fisherman, don't be afraid to move up and down that bank a little ways.
Water temperature plays a really big role where those fish are going to be sitting usually. If it's really, really warm on top, they're going to try to get as low as they can at that point, aren't they?
Not necessarily. We've been catching fish in 3 foot of water, 4 foot of water, which, at Pathfinder this last week, we saw water temperatures as high as like 78 degrees. And we're still catching fish in that 5 and 6 foot of water. So I don't know if it's so much I think they kind of acclimate to that water temperature to some degree. Maybe they won't stay in that water temperature for a real long time. And I think, especially as the water starts dropping, they're going to start associating them where they're at on the lake to areas that have some deeper water where they can drop off into that cooler temperature. So, but the shallow water is a lot of times where the minnows are at and the crawdads are at and the bugs. So that's what these fish are feeding on. So that's where we're finding them.
And that's what you want to have for bait, those colors, and that's where color plays back into that with those crawdads. And things too.
A lot of mayflies. I guess I call them mayflies. I'm sure the bug guys will tell me I'm wrong, but a lot of mayflies and big bug hatches, and so I would kind of like to experiment, trying to troll some type of a bug pattern or with up there for those walleyes, because I know they're eating them, but regardless, however you're going to fish, there's going to be fish. You just got to move and find them.
We had talked when we were at Glendo that you had an idea, and we're not going to bring the idea up, but it had to do with what those fish were eating. So if you can see what they're eating, if they're basically chucking up whatever they're eating, then obviously that's an easy way to find how you're going to help catch your fish.
Yeah, there is a little bit of an advantage to keeping fish occasionally, because when you're looking in your live well, you see crawdad pieces or minnows that they've coughed up, or I think it was last week we talked, but I caught my first walleye that I caught. I grab it around the belly of it to take the hook out of its mouth, and it coughed up 4 minnows, and they looked like carp minnows to me. So then now I'm evaluating what I'm running size wise and color wise, and trying to kind of match that hatch.
And that's probably not a bad idea to break that phone out and take some pictures so that you can kind of keep a mental and an actual log.
And there's a lot of guys, a lot of these old timers especially, that keep a pretty darn good log of where they're at, what time of year, what they were doing, what the water temperature was, and presentation. And I've never cared that much, but I know there's guys that keep track of every fish they catch and where they caught them, and I think that's pretty cool.
The Wyoming Walleye Stampede is about to wrap up. The championship weekend is coming up, and a lot of frustration could happen with these guys that don't get an opportunity to come up and fish like they'd like to.
Yeah, we typically hold these anglers to a little bit higher standard, and part of our efforts with the tournament format that we do is a conservation-based system, right? We're not, especially this time of year, we're not putting fish in live wells. We're just taking pictures of them on a measuring board and recording the length and converting it to a length to weight. But the hard part is where do we draw the line of what size fish do we want them to keep or measure? And obviously, if we did a 14-inch limit, then everybody's going to have their full limit of fish every day, most likely. But if we bump it to 16, and we've kept even though Glendo has a 15-inch minimum, we kind of held our guys to a 16-inch limit. And so if we move it to a 16-inch limit at Pathfinder, how many guys are actually going to have a limit of fish? It might be pretty tough. So we'll probably put it at 15, just because there seems like even 15-inch fish can be a challenge to catch. And ultimately, it's not a pride thing in terms of how many fish you put on your scorecard. It's even for everybody. So I don't know. Right now, it's looking like we'll probably be a 15 or 16-inch minimum at that tournament. Where last time we ran a tournament at Pathfinder, it was a 17-inch minimum.
So you've fished there quite a little bit over the last couple of weeks. Is that you doing research of where you need to set those limits?
When we first started running this tournament at Pathfinder, I had gone out with a friend in August, and we had ran the season circuit already. And I'm thinking about running a tournament here at Pathfinder, and let's just see what the bite looks like in August. And we went out and we kind of pitched our shorelines that we were accustomed to and weren't catching any fish. And I'm like, boy, if we ran a tournament or this time of year, it might be kind of tough. And I said, well, we've been hitting the sand all day. Let's go try some rocks. Well, we go hit a rock point and bam, 2 25-inchers. Well, let's go find some more rocks. Hit some more rocks. Oh, 26-incher. Oh, 28-incher. Oh, a 27-incher. We ended up having like 6 fish over 25 inches in a couple hours. So I'm like, well, this could be a kind of a fun tournament. Again, guys are going to have to figure it out, right? I mean, and just because we caught them on the rocks one day doesn't mean we're going to catch them the next day. But I do believe that there's still a lot of good quality fish in Pathfinder, and this kind of will separate the men from the boys per se, and it's our championship, so a little bit tougher bite, making it a little more of a challenge. Certainly isn't something that they're not used to, and certainly something that they don't expect. Although they're going to be catching fish, and so then it's just a matter of finding the right quality fish to pull out the win.
So it really is going to be a challenge for some folks if, the last time they fished Pathfinder was the last time the tournament was there. That could be a pretty interesting twist.
Yeah, we didn't fish Pathfinder last year on the circuit, so I think we were at Seminole last year. And so it's been a couple of years, and so water levels look like they're going to continue to drop out there for the next who knows how long.
Yeah.
So, even though we're at close to 70% right now, it might be down to 50%. And that's going to create a whole new exposure to a lot of new structure and things that people hadn't seen, and might completely change the way that they're breaking down that lake and areas of the lake that they could actually fish.
Which is the fun part. It's fishing, not catching, right? You got to play the elements just like anything else.
Yeah, it's it definitely creates a challenge, and instead of just going fishing, you're kind of you're hunting. You're looking to maybe try to figure out a presentation that's a little different than the next guy to see what might trigger those bigger fish. And then, of course, once you find those bigger fish, whether they're in a certain area of the lake or a certain bay, or there's just a certain rock pile that's holding good quality fish, you got to keep that secret, right?
Yeah, then you got to fend off people. You got to move on every once in a while just to do it. But get in here, check them out, Rocky Mountain Discount Sports. And, of course, as always, you can go check them out online, RockyMountainSports.com.
Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors with Drew Kirby. If you have a question, want to make a comment, or have an idea for a show topic, message us on the My Country mobile app. Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors.